Faith is one of those games that may not look impressive from a glance, with its style reminiscent of the 8-bit Atari style from a time long, long ago. But if you give it a deeper look, you'll find a fantastic story about a man overcoming depression, guilt, terror, and a deviant evil threat. Created by Airdorf Games and published by New Blood Interactive, Faith the Unholy Trinity will have you playing as a priest named John Ward, whose failures haunt him in both his dreams and waking moments. Armed with only his faith and a cross, he'll have to exorcise the horrors that threaten him, the innocent, and the world. The gameplay is deceivingly simplistic. You only have 2 controls: the WASD movement and a cross attack with the spacebar. However, the creator Airdorf has gotten creative with how you use these controls. Exorcising demons won't be as easy as you would first think. First, let's talk about the art style. As I've mentioned before, I am a fan of pixel graphics, but even this seemed a little too simplistic for me at first. But once I actually started playing, I found that the style actually added to the creepiness, and I fell in love with it, honestly. Excuse my language, but I dig the vibe. If I were a more literate person, I could probably explain just how this game makes you feel, but I'm not, so you get just one word: haunted. This game feels haunted, and not in a kitschy haunted house at your local carnival kind of thing. More like an ever-present sense of foreboding and dread. Something ain't right in this house, and why is my daughter looking at me like that kind of way? You don't need insane realistic graphics to make something terrifying. Not when you have atmosphere, and Faith has a metric ton of atmosphere. Then there's the rotoscope cutscenes. These mesh seamlessly with the rest of the game style and really bring home the horror Faith is going for. Or I assume it's going for. Also, this is one of the coolest posters I've ever seen, and I want it now. How can I say this without sounding like I'm gushing? You know what? I'm gonna gush. The 8-bit music is the perfect companion to the art style. From the Doom to the Man on a Mission tracks, it all has a purpose. It isn't just bland filler music, it has a function to enhance the atmosphere. It's there to help tell the story, to help get across that you should be afraid, you should be anxious, something bad is about to happen, or it's already happening. And that's what game music should be. It should be there to aid in the atmosphere and the story, not just something you put there because reasons. Nothing is wasted in this game. As far as the dialogue goes, well, as you can see, it's text-to-speech, but it's actually good. I found myself eager to hear more from not only our protagonist, but everyone and everything that had any lines. The overly processed speak and spell from hell voices were produced with the help of a SAM, or a software automatic mouth. Not all the voices are from this program. Some sound like true blue human voices under the layer of distortion. For instance, when confronting Amy in the attic in Chapter 1, you can tell that there are 2 distinct voices blended together, the TTS and a real person. And if that's not a real person, then wow, I don't know what kind of magic you did with that, but it sounds awesome. All in all, the sound is good. Like I said before, Faith implements a simplistic 2-action system. You move, and you attack, aka bearing your cross. You would think using these simple controls would get boring, but you won't have time to be bored when you have demons zipping to and fro with their goal being your demise. And add in that for most of the game, one touch spells your demise. John is strong in spirit, but his body is as fragile as a cheaply made glass bottle. Yeah, you're gonna hear that so much you'll never be able to see the word mortis without hearing it in that voice for the rest of your life. The name of the game here is Patterns. Every boss battle has them, and there are many of said boss battles. Some are a one and done pattern, but most come in different waves. You'll have to learn these patterns if you want to defeat these baddies. Most of the time it will be trial and error, but sometimes, especially when you get used to how the game plays, you can manage to figure out the moves quickly and get them in one go. If that sounds frustrating, it's because it kind of is. Sometimes anyway. If you aren't used to or into this kind of gameplay, it might take you more than a handful of tries to get it down. It got me heated and letting out that lamenting, "Are you kidding me?" line. I mean, I didn't get the Master of Mortis achievement for nothing. But this happened for the most part during the earlier parts of Chapter 2, which is where you'll really start seeing the meat of the game. However, if you persevere all the way through the 3 chapters, you'll be rewarded with an amazing story along the way. Aside from exorcising demons, you'll also come across notes. These are primarily how the story is told. From background information on characters and fleshing out the world, to just what's up with this death cult. Some notes are scattered around freely, and others you'll have to use your cross on the world objects to exorcise the note out of them. In Chapter 1 specifically, there are a handful of notes that are a bit of a red herring. They really hold no bearing on the story, but it's worth it to be extra thorough and find as many as you can to get an even broader sense of the world of faith. On the note of being extra thorough, it also pays off to find the secret bosses. You can easily miss these if you're just running through and not investigating everything. And even then, you can still miss them if you don't know what you're looking for. I won't lie, for some of the secret bosses I had to use a guide, especially for the elevator game. Apparently this is a real world game that I had no idea of until I watched The Vanishing at Cecil Hotel, I think that's the show it was, and I only vaguely recalled it at best. I definitely didn't know how to play it, and even then, you may not realize it's something you can do if you aren't paying attention to your notes. So yeah, don't feel embarrassed to use a guide to help you figure out those secrets. Whatever helps you get through this game. Big fat spoiler warning! In this section, I will be spoiling pretty much the whole game. If you think you want to play this game, I would stop watching here. Seriously, play the game first. Then come back to watch this part of the video. I mean, if you come back at all, which, I mean, even if you don't, still go play the game first. Seriously. If you've already played it, or already know the story, or just don't intend on playing it at all, well, stick around. It's about to get interesting. At least, I hope it is. I want to mention before getting into it that this isn't exactly an exhaustive deep dive. I will summarize each chapter and then go over most, but not all of the notes in order to give a little more context on what's going on. If you want a deeper dive into the lore of Faith, the Unholy Trinity, definitely go check out the videos other creators have done. This game is worth listening to hours-long dives into its story. So with that said, let's dive in. Chapter 1 starts us on the side of a nondescript road. From the short prologue, we know John is here on unfinished business. That business lies just off of Snake Meadow Hill Road, and through some woodland John will have to traverse to get there. At first it seems like just a normal forest, but we quickly find out that this place isn't the gentle, serene woodland we would hope it would be. Aside from the gravestones and eviscerated wildlife, John will have to deal with an odd creature that hurls insults at him on his journey. Still, this creature's not the reason he's here, and onward he goes until he makes it to the home at the end of the path. Dilapidated as it is, John doesn't hesitate to enter once he acquires the key. Inside of this place, it's even more eerie than outside. No solace or comfort will be found in this shelter of the damned. Yet John explores, and after making his way to the basement, his quarry makes itself known. This girl, is his unfinished business. She stalks him throughout the house, and he fends her off time and again until he's able to ascend to the attic.
I heard a door open upstairs.
The last place he saw her a year ago. She changed from the last time he saw her, and I don't mean she got a new haircut.
Do you see my face is pretty?
Still, he attempts to exorcise the demon plaguing the girl, but it's never that easy. The demon puts up a fight. And even when it cannot best our priest, John is denied his peace as it jumps through the window. Heading downstairs in pursuit, there is now a message written in blood, and a gun laying there, tempting John, mocking him, trying to lead him astray.
With one bullet.
He finds the girl not far from the house, and if he wanted, he could easily put her down. But that's not what he came here for. He came to exorcise a demon, to save the girl, not kill her. No. Instead, even though he was unable to accomplish his mission, he leaves the forest. The tricky creature from before attempts to ambush John before he can get back to his car, but using the gun, he shoots the demon, causing it to stumble out into the road and become a smear of blood and viscera on the asphalt.
I can't explain what happened at that house. I can only have faith that I did the right thing.
We can get quite a bit of context in the notes in Chapter 1, and some notes can be considered red herrings, so we're going to look at the ones that pertain to our main story. Exercising the well in the forest gives us Nate and Jason's birthday invitation. This gives us a little more direction on where to locate the home, and will be a little more interesting once we get some more information later on in Chapter 3. Upon exercising a withering tree, we get Mrs. Martin's first note.
Today I noticed Amy's favorite tree looks like it's dying. All the needles are falling off it and the bark is peeling. I guess I'm more upset about it than Amy is. She is totally absorbed in her volunteer work at the clinic. I guess it's good that she found something she's passionate about, but I've gotten ugly looks from some of the women at book club. Kathy and her religious friends won't even talk to me anymore.
Amy works at a clinic that seems to take up quite a bit of her attention, and her employment there is drawing the ire from the local religious citizens. Now, this may be leading you to think it's a certain type of clinic, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Exercising a puddle, we get Mrs. Martin's second note.
I caught some people walking through the woods around the house last week. Not kids, just regular adults. They told me they got lost while hiking. I pointed them back towards the road. The whole thing just didn't feel right. I think I should go dig up Bob's rifle out of storage.
This seems to be before Amy was possessed, or early enough for it to not be noticeable. As far as the lost hikers go, yes, they could be lost. Or it could be something more nefarious. Most things in this game seem to trend toward the latter. From a pile of bones, we get Mrs. Martin's third note.
Bob, the kids and I miss you more every day. The twins and Amy have started their next school year here at home. Amy keeps asking when she's going to be allowed to go to real school. I think she's getting cabin fever. The twins are having no problems occupying their time. Yesterday, they came in with their hands covered in blood. I guess they found a dead deer and thought it would be a good idea to touch it. I think we might have a coyote problem, because when I went out with them to look at the dead deer, it was a pretty gruesome sight. All this just a day after the twins' birthday party. Can't wait till you come home.
Again, even more odd things are happening. Is this what happens when someone's possessed in the world of faith? Or does it indicate something more is going on? In any case, I highly doubt it's the work of coyotes. Exercising a rubber ducky gets us Mrs. Martin's fourth note.
I don't feel safe in my own home anymore. I hear voices outside around the house at night. I don't let the twins go out in the woods to play because I'm afraid of what's out there. The house itself feels stressed, distorted, slanted somehow. It's like I'm walking through a carnival fun house. Amy's condition has only gotten worse. I can't stand to be around her, and I don't know why. She just doesn't seem like herself anymore. I want to take her to the doctor, but I can't leave the boys here. I find that the phone stops working throughout the day, and now I can't seem to find my car keys. Thank God Bob comes home tomorrow.
Amy is now exhibiting clear signs of possession, and it's gotten to the point that even her mother can sense something isn't right. We can probably guess it wasn't too long after this note that whatever demon possessed Amy fully took control. Mrs. Martin's 5th note can be gotten from exercising a doll. This is a red herring note, however there is some relevant information in the last bit.
Bob must be stationed somewhere in the Middle East because he sent over this weird-looking doll for Amy's birthday. I'll ask Anish about it next time we have book club. She looks like she could be from over there. Amy didn't seem excited to see the doll. I think she would rather have a phone instead, or maybe seeing a baby doll makes her feel self-conscious about working at the clinic.
I know this is the 80s, but come on, Cindy. Anyway, the part mentioning how Amy feels some type of way about the doll due to her work at the clinic gives us a hint that infants are involved with her work, or at least the clinic deals with infants. At first, I thought what many others thought when reading this, however, this isn't that type of clinic, and you'll see why I know this in Chapter 3. John Ward's first note can be found by the shed. It's the first of 4 notes that give the backstory on the events of the exorcism that took place here a year ago.
The Martins' house lies about 100 yards off of Snake Meadow Hill Road. There is almost no driveway. Trees jut out in the middle of a gravel path that is mostly covered in grass. It was difficult to find the house, especially since it was already dark when we arrived. Father Allred seemed to know where he was going. He simply drove straight ahead until we arrived at the house. In the headlights, I saw an old shed off to the right of the path. Father Allred explained that he would rather perform the exorcism away from the house, but the Martins had insisted that Amy remain inside. He complained that having the family present makes it difficult to proceed with elements of the rite that may seem harsh to the layperson. Mr. and Mrs. Martin greeted us at the front porch. Mr. Martin led us downstairs to the basement, explaining that Amy was down there in restraints. I felt for him. There was guilt and shame in his voice. Amy was in the very back of the attic in a chair, perfectly calm, staring at us. It is hard to describe the look on her face. It was not the kind of look a child gives you. Amy's parents could not endure witnessing the proceedings of the rite for long. Mrs. Martin was hysterical, and the thing that was inside Amy was feeding off of the fear. Father Allred asked me to take the Martins upstairs. I was physically worn out, but managed to get them back up the stairs into the kitchen. Amy was screaming, "Mother! Mother!" the whole time. Finally, I got them to sit down with me at the kitchen table. After a few minutes, we couldn't hear much of anything down in the basement, so I went down to check on things. I found Father Allred lying on his back, unconscious, with his arms spread out wide. Amy was not in the chair. I guess I was the only one who thought to check in the attic. When I got up there, it was freezing cold. I found Amy standing in the back, looking straight at me like when I first met her downstairs. We spoke briefly, although it was frustrating to talk to her, or it. I experienced a bit of deception from the demon. During our conversation, she uttered my mother's first name, and in other instances spoke perfect Latin. I called for help from the others, but nobody came. So I raised my crucifix and began the rite again.
He also has 2 more notes. The 5th note is written to a woman named Molly.
Molly, the church might contact you in a few days to tell you their version of what happened to me. I want you to hear it from me first. A year ago, I was involved in the exorcism of Amy Martin. What they said in the papers about what happened isn't true. She my superior, Father Allred, with her. When I confronted her, she managed to cut the power to the house and her own parents with their own. I have to go back to that house. The nightmares I'm having are real. She's still there, waiting for me. I can still help her. If I don't come back, know that I love you and I'm sorry. John.
So we can get a lot of context out of this note. One, that the Vatican doesn't want the truth getting out, which makes sense if you think about it. It was a failed exorcism which led to at least 3 deaths. That would reflect poorly on the church and may even cause some kind of scandal. And 2, this note is written to Molly. We don't know who she is, but she's important to John. However, he's so affected by the events that happened a year ago that he had to go back to the Martins' house to confront his, demons. His last note in the chapter is his request of release, which can be gotten from defeating the secret mirror demon boss, and it reads,
Dear Dr. McGlashan, It has been 30 days since the beginning of my treatment here at Yale Psychiatric Institute. Dr. Spinell, who has been so patient with me, has helped me understand my afflictions and has helped me find a way to move forward and accept the truth. With Dr. Spinell's help, I have come to accept what really happened in September at the Martin family residence. I accept that what happened was not the result of any supernatural phenomenon, but rather the desperate actions of a young girl driven to violence by her dogmatic parents and old church rituals that are thought to drive out evil. I am happy to report that, since accepting the truth, my nightmares have ceased, and I now enjoy peace of mind that I have not felt since the incident. Given my progress since first coming here, I respectfully request my release from Yale Psychiatric Institute, contingent upon follow-up appointments with Dr. Spinell in the future. Sincerely, John Ward.
So, after the events of the failed exorcism, John was placed in a psychiatric hospital. Makes sense if he was claiming everything happened because of the demon possession. Most people aren't gonna believe that and either think he's delusional or lying. Lucky for him, they thought him delusional, as it seems if he was charged with anything, it must have been dropped. As far as why the letter was written, I can guess he either wrote it to make the doctors think he now believed it was all mundane, just so he can secure his release, right? Or someone else wrote it to get him out of there. The second death ritual instructions will be found after defeating Amy in the attic if all the other notes have been gathered by this time. Excluding the mirror demon and the ending notes, of course.
This is the ceremony for opening the... Let no brother or sister utter it. Prepare the... Use the right index finger to draw the signs of the... on the floor. Bring an impure vessel to the signs of the... Let a brother or sister drink at each sign of the... Carve the face of the... The blood that fills the opening is the new. Let 7 be taken from their mothers and lowered into the... Upon the offering of the 7th, the... will emerge from the... This is the second death.
It's instructions on some kind of heinous ritual known as the second death. We'll see more of this in future chapters too. The last note we'll look at in this chapter is Gary's letter, which can be gotten via the offering ending, which is achieved by shooting the sacrificial fox in the woods.
Hello, Amy. I am sorry to hear about your parents' decision. It is hard for people to trust what they do not understand. I know you are only 17, but you are clearly an adult, and you are able to handle your own life. Do not let your mom and dad stop you from following your dreams. If there is anything I can do to help you, just let me know. We are having a get-together at the clinic Saturday night, and I would love for you to stop by. We still consider you a part of the team, even if your mom and dad do not. We hope to see you there. Gary.
We infer that Gary works at the same clinic Amy does, though the rest can be a little vague to interpret just yet. However, we do know that the clinic is a key place of interest, so we should keep it, Gary, and Amy at least in the back of our minds for now. Also, note the type of language he uses to speak to Amy here. It could seem innocent, but I really don't believe that's how an adult should speak to a minor, especially not one that has no relation to them. I digress. Anyway, Chapter 2 starts with a man called Father Garcia. We start in his bedroom, but once he exits into the next room, we can see pictures of a boy, or what once was a boy, as each picture depicts him growing more and more grotesque. Down in the basement, we see the creature chained to a bed. It speaks as a child at first, but quickly the demon makes itself known. Father Garcia does his best to exorcise the demon from the child known as Michael, but somehow the demon escapes. He follows the trail of his apartment and finds it eating the corpse of another tenant. After Father Garcia expresses shock, which, yeah, Demon Michael runs away exclaiming, "I have the body of a pig," and Father Garcia shimmies after him. So you may have noticed that Demon Michael is the same creature John encountered in Chapter 1. This little prologue shows us that after Michael escaped Father Garcia's care, it made its way to the woods near the Martin household. If you exorcise the demon 10 times, it drops Cardinal Gifford's letter.
Father Garcia, you are hereby instructed to release Michael Davies from your care and return him to his home immediately. Mr. and Mrs. Davies have already been contacted by our office. A representative of the church is currently en route to their home to discuss compensation in return for their discretion. You will meet our representative there and accompany him back to Rome. Cardinal Gifford.
We can see it's addressed to Father Garcia and not so much requests, but demands the father release Michael back to his parents. And if you kill the Gray Man in the first chapter and receive the father and son ending, you'll receive Father Garcia's letter.
Esteemed Cardinal Gifford, with all due respect, you cannot grasp the importance of the work I am doing for young Michael without being present here. Michael needs my help now more than ever. In the past few weeks, I have made great progress with Michael's affliction. Nevertheless, whatever darkness is inside of him fights back with increasing ferocity. We must not let up the fight against the enemy at such a critical time. There is another reason why I dare not return Michael to his family, nor let them see him. The darkness inside him afflicts his soul, but it also causes a terrible strain on his body. So that there may be no mistaking what I mean, I have enclosed a photograph of young Michael during one of our sessions.
With these 2 letters, we get a bit of a clearer picture on what's going on in the prologue. Father Garcia took Michael Davies into his care in order to try to purge the demon possessing the boy. However, it's been at least 3 months, and the parents are getting worried. So the church has told Father Garcia to release Michael back to his parents. But as we can see, he is in no condition to be released, as Father Garcia attempts to tell the church with photographic proof. But once Michael escapes, he takes the last photo with him, thus taking Father Garcia's proof. Also, if you haven't figured it out by now, the Gray Man in Chapter 1 is Father Garcia, hence why you get that note when killing him. Now, we can explain his appearance there. Since Michael's there, he was probably tracking Michael down. Garcia has to go after him not only because Michael's his charge, but Michael's also dangerous. Thus, he follows Michael into the woods near the Martins' residence. Why Michael chooses to go here, I'm not sure. It could be linked. It could be a coincidence. Either way, in the canon ending, John shoots the demon and it's turned into roadkill by a semi. It's now no longer a danger, but I don't think the church is going to look too kindly on Father Garcia now, seeing as the Davies will never get their son back. After that short prequel interlude, we're back in control of John, back in another set of woods. As fragile as this guy is, he has the motivation and the will to keep going. If I encountered a chupacabra demon in the woods, I would never even want to see another tree again, let alone run my ass back into another set of woods. Luckily or unluckily, the woodland doesn't last for long. John will find himself in a cemetery, and this is not a peaceful place of rest. Just like every other area in this game, there is no safe haven. Constant foreboding is the name of the game. In this area, John will have to exorcise 3 demons as indicated by the people in the chapel. Once that's done, John re-enters the chapel and upon looking in the mirror, views a horrifying scene. It wasn't just a vision or a hallucination, as once John walks away from the mirror, he leaves a trail of blood behind. The man just stabbed a key into his own eye. However, he now has the key and can pass through the gate to continue on into this horror fest. Along the way, John will witness a tree scuttling away. Ominous for sure, but still he heads ever onwards until he reaches a church. He'll notice a child running into the cornfield behind the church, and after following him, he'll hear a child calling out for help. But there's no child there to be found, only a single scarecrow amongst the rows of corn. So, making it back to the church, once inside, John makes a pit stop by the confessional to relieve some of his burden.
Pray for me, Father, for I have sinned. Hear my petitions. Bring the child to me.
I'm not a religious person, but I don't think that's how these things usually go. As he explores the area, John will note that this house of God has been deeply corrupted by something profane. And after dealing with the horrors of the church, he finds himself outside in the woods once again. And in a twist of events, after reading a quite disturbing note, John will find himself in the form of a deformed spider. Luckily for him, this isn't a permanent change. He will revert back to normal after going under an overpass where a couple seem to be having car trouble. He may normally offer to help these people, but right now, John has his own problems to deal with. He heads further up a tunnel dubbed Candy Tunnel and proceeds inside. Here, he'll deal with more of the same disgusting demons and men painted in red who only want to do him harm. Once he makes it past the door with the eye, a person or creature that bears a resemblance to a nun with a white mask attempts to harm John. But Father Garcia appears and brandishes his cross, banishing the creature momentarily and saving John's bacon. Father Garcia needs John to protect him while he recites the 91st Psalms, and that's just what John does, more or less. Eventually, the nun demon transforms into an even more gruesome monster, and then John wakes up. From the moment John stepped foot in the forest up until now has all been a dream. However, don't take this as a Dallas ending.
I had a nightmare, a terrible nightmare.
It had its purpose. All these things actually happened, just John wasn't actually present. It was a prophetic dream, if you will. Something to help John understand what's really going on and what he's up against.
The workers of darkness grows stronger. This will be my greatest test of faith yet. God have mercy on my soul.
As with Chapter 1, Chapter 2's notes provide a little more context on the goings-on of the world and the story, as well as indicating what John is up against, and that it's some kind of satanic cult. When purifying the tree with viscera on it, we receive the note, Notice.
The current investigation being conducted at Gallup Cemetery by the State of Connecticut Historical Society has been postponed until further notice. In the interim, we ask the public to avoid the cemetery grounds, the surrounding woods, any wildlife, and any unidentified persons roaming the area. Thank you for your patience.
This is our first hint that something's been going on in the cemetery. In front of the tomb, we find Unspeakable's blessing instructions.
Dearest disciple, verily, not everyone who says Lucifer, Lucifer, shall inherit his kingdom. You must first conjure his demon. You must then serve his demon. You must then walk among the children of men as his demon. Thus shall you receive the blessing of the unspeakable. Return to the saved family tomb whenever you're in need of rest. Gary.
Now we see that this isn't just some soft-baked teenage satanic edginess. This is a cult. Each of the 3 demons we exorcise in the area also leave notes behind. The core demon gives us the one titled Miscarriage.
Nobody was thrilled when I got pregnant, not even a little happy. Even my doctor seemed to be judging me. Each time I'd leave the doctor's office, I'd see this strange woman across the street. All she'd do is stare at me and smile. No words, just a big, warm smile. Somehow, it made those visits a little more bearable. After I lost the baby, I saw her again across the street from the doctor's. Her smile was as big as ever, but somehow not as warm and friendly as I remember. Yesterday I was walking and was shocked to see the woman standing in the middle of the path. Now she was pregnant. She beckoned towards me. I followed her off the path into the woods. That's when I met Gary.
The screaming baby demon gives us Missing Grandpa.
Losing Grandpa was the hardest thing I ever experienced. We were really close. I cried about it for weeks. Then my stepmom introduced me to some of her friends. They asked me, "Would you like to see your grandfather again?" I missed him so much, I was willing to try anything. That night, my stepmom drove me to one of her friends' house. They took me down to the basement. I saw my grandfather in there. Only it wasn't actually him. When I tried to run, they closed the basement door and locked me in. I can't remember much else from that night. My stepmom's friends are always coming by the house now. They tell me I have a debt to pay. They say they have work for me to do.
And the Mist Demon gives us freed.
I've been freed. No more overbearing father-turned-violent alcoholic. No more hiding my bruises and cuts. No more pills and needles. No more getting laughed at and kicked around. They'll never laugh at me again. By day my body withers away, but by night my mind explores forbidden worlds of power and knowledge, guided by beings of pure darkness. I have been trusted with secret knowledge of the demon's seal. I have learned the correct conjuring sign, drawing the inverted star along the rocks arranged in 5, first at the top left point and then down. I will lure them into the woods, then I will show them my power.
I believe these are all disciples or potential disciples of this cult, and shows that the cult uses many tricks to fill their ranks, from the temptation of power to outright preying on the vulnerable. Also, in the note about the miscarriage, it mentions Gary. This is yet another mention of this name, which we saw previously in the note to Amy in Chapter 1. So we can, by now, confirm that Gary has something to do with this cult. Gary is not a good person. There are 4 paranormal investigation notes scattered around the church as well. The first one speaks about the spindly lady, which we do encounter and exercise during this chapter.
Day 1 of our paranormal investigation into the old Snake Meadow Hill Church. We've got 3 cameras, a box of tapes, and enough beer and beef jerky to last us a week. On our way in, we asked some of the locals about the church. It was mostly the stories we had heard before. Evil spirits dragging children into the cornfield and secret tunnels under the chapel. But there was this spindly lady game that we hadn't heard yet. Apparently it has to do with summoning the spirit of a woman who used to take care of the orphans back in the 50s. There was even an old rhyme they told us. Walk the church from room to room and maybe you will see her. She will move when you do, but never try to trick her. Awesome. We're going to try the game tonight as soon as we get settled in.
As for who she is, or may have been, we'll see more about that in the prologue. The rest of the notes show that they had captured paranormal activity and were riding high. Until things went sideways and,
Shouldn't have come here. Tape's missing. Lars stuck behind basement door. Henry hasn't come back yet and can't leave anyway.
Well, we can assume that 2 of them never made it out, becoming the victims of the spindly lady, and the other that ran more than likely met their end in the cornfield, which we'll get more context on in the prologue notes. Father Clark's final memoir can be found in the basement of the church.
This is my final memoir, hastily scribbled on a page of the good book. I now descend the staircase, knowing full well that she waits for me ahead. Checking my old watch has revealed something quite astonishing. Time doesn't change down here as we know it on the surface. Even now, the hands don't move past 2 o'clock. God's work be done. I have been to where only the faintest lights shine and protect from things unspeakable. God help me, Father Clark, a foolish old man, going mad in this dark prison, ears bleeding from the screams of a demon.
We aren't sure who Father Clark is, but we know he went to confront something down in the basement. A demon, of course, but what demon? Well, we'll find that out soon too. There is one note we absolutely have to pick up to continue on, thus you can't miss it. However, you won't be able to view it again later in the notes menu, so take a good look at it while you can. As we can see, it begins describing 3 bodies used in a paganistic ritual. However, it quickly devolves into blaming John himself for the acts, and even further descending into mocking John and demoralizing him with this madman-esque rant about being the god of this world. Now, John didn't actually do these heinous acts. Demons, and even his own guilt, don't play nice with him. The newspaper articles we can find on the skeletons in the tunnels gives us some more backstory about just what's going on here and gives a little context for certain scenes in Chapter 3.
2 more bodies have been recovered from the drainage ditch under Snake Meadow Hill Road outside Sterling. The notorious Candy Tunnel, known in the area to be a home to addicts, gangs, runaways, and the indigent, has been the site of several grisly discoveries over the past 3 months. Since May, 5 bodies have been recovered from the drainage ditch leading to the tunnels. Authorities are being pressured by concerned citizens to search the tunnels amid fears of a possible connection to Joe Bauman, aka the candy store killer, who has claimed 8 victims in Connecticut and Rhode Island over the past year.
In this one, we learned that finding dead bodies in this area isn't all that uncommon. It's believed that an alleged serial killer, Joe Bauman, has made the sewers his home, and this is his work. However, since these 2 new bodies have surfaced, the citizens are now putting pressure on the police to do something about it. Why now? Why only now are they asking for this? Because before, it was just those that would frequent the sewers turning up dead. People that society could overlook. However, the 2 newest victims were more than likely the couple we saw on the overpass. Not the usual type of victim. So now the citizens are concerned for their own well-being for fear of being targeted next.
Law enforcement officials are reporting multiple officers down, including 1 deputy who was fatally wounded after an exchange of gunfire in the sewer tunnels near Snake Meadow Hill Road, also known as the Candy Tunnel. Witnesses say they heard the shots approximately 10 minutes after police raided the tunnels, where suspected murderer Joe Bauman, aka the candy store killer, was alleged to be hiding. At this time, it is not known how many officers have been wounded, although it has been confirmed that 1 officer has been killed. Officials are not saying if Bauman was wounded in the exchange, and efforts are being made to recover the casualties from the tunnels.
We see the police did finally take action. However, it turned grisly fast. A shootout occurred, leaving 1 officer confirmed dead. The rest is unknown at this time. However, when we find the note "Beast in the Candy Tunnel,"
when I was a boy, my Nana used to tell me old legends about the dragons, trolls, and demons that lived up in the mountains of Norway. In those old tales, the people were never strong enough to kill the monster, so instead, they would sacrifice one of their own to appease it, keep it satisfied. It was like a deal with the devil. 1 sacrifice per year so that the beast would not come down from the mountain and slaughter the entire village in one night. There was no candy store killer. What we're dealing with is not even human. When I got separated from the other officers, I saw the damn thing dragging what was left of Jenkins down into its lair. That's when I understood. The bums and the tweakers, the ones with and the runaways, they'll eventually come back to the tunnels. They always do. It can have them, for all I care. Nobody wants them around, except maybe that thing. And I tell you what, I hope to God it never gets tired of them.
we find out that this is not the work of the candy store killer. The cops didn't much care for the people who would frequent the sewers, and after this particular cop at least would rather sacrifice them to keep the normal, morally good townsfolk safe from whatever demon lurked within, than to ever see the beast again. Molly's letter can be found near John's bed when he wakes up.
John, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I will always love you back. Molly.
It's short, but gets the point across. We still aren't sure just who Molly is yet, but we can infer that the two were close, and they loved, or still love each other. And the last pertinent letter in this chapter can be found next to John's door, which will be gotten with the go forth with faith ending.
John, we don't have much time. The profane Sabbath is almost upon us. If they find Nate and Jason, they will perform a ritual on them to call forth a demon of unspeakable power. The name of the demon is Malphus. I am in the process of discovering their whereabouts. I will contact you again soon. We must not let them do to the boys what they did to Amy. Father Garcia.
It seems Father Garcia and John do know each other. We can assume John had to have told him about Amy and the twins, which is why he's looking for them, and wants John's help to stop the profane Sabbath. The prologue only unlocks after you finish Chapter 2, and it can be considered a dream as well, but it does offer a little more information on the top dogs of the cult, so to speak. The scene starts with John on the side of the road with his car damaged. If we walk to the right screen, we can see a truck just as bad off as our car if not worse. And upon peering closer, there's a red man smiling at us. We can guess that this is one of the cult's thralls by his red appearance, as we had run-ins with them in Chapter 2. We can also pretty accurately guess that he's probably crashed into John on purpose to get him to stop at this very place. If we leave the screen and return, we'll see the thrall is still alive and runs off into the cornfield. John follows him and finds a scarecrow, the same scarecrow we saw in Chapter 2. It's innocent looking for now, but it is an object that can be purified. However, John will have to perform a few extra steps for this one. Heading further into the cornfields reveals a demon hunting John. He'll have to repel him a number of times, and each time he does, the scarecrow's face deforms more and more until it's just a hole, much like Amy's face from Chapter 1. Still, unable to purify it, John will now be able to head beyond the cornfield. He comes upon a sad sight of a deceased dog, but is able to purify it and move on. We arrive at a familiar location, Snake Meadow Hill Church. Entering inside, John will have to deal with the thralls again as he investigates the area, and a couple of demons that want to make his day just that much more difficult. After beating the basement demon, the nun demon we saw and fought in Chapter 2 will reveal itself, though it's not looking the fight this time around. John will leave the basement and see two children who could very well represent the twins run by. Following them leads him straight to the nun who has some interesting words for him. We don't get clarification on why she says this just yet, but we'll get a bit more information on this in Chapter 3, and that concludes the prequel. However, there is another ending for those who want to be a little more thorough. If you grab all the notes and perform the ritual the correct way, we'll see 9 children surround John as the scarecrow burns, and then be turned into the wretch once again, like in Chapter 2. Scuttling around, we see a number of stickmen, which corresponds to the number of children, and again, happen upon the nun demon. And that is the end for that one. So the notes we get from this prologue mostly dive into one person in particular, Sister Miriam Bell. The first note we can get will be gotten from exercising the dog.
About a week ago, we started hearing those awful noises coming from the adjacent fields. After 3 nights, the children were getting pretty scared. I told them it was just coyotes. That 3rd night, the noises seemed closer than ever. The dogs were panicking. I could hardly approach them. Then Greta, the last of that old line brought over by the German missionaries, broke loose and tore off into the corn. We all listened, too scared to go after her, as her barks faded away into the distance. After that, we had 2 nights of silence, besides the endless whispering of the wind blowing through the crops. But then this morning I stepped outside to see this fresh horror left at the edge of the field. There's something out there.
Something is stalking the cornfield, and by now we know what it was. The demon in the cornfield that stalked John. Unfortunately, this poor pup was also a victim of the demon, as well as the guy from the paranormal team we found out about in Chapter 2. Unfortunately, these 2 weren't its only victims. The next note is gotten after exorcising the St. William statue.
What more could I have done? I warned them not to go into the fields. I warned them against straying too far from the sanctuary. Should I have shut them in their quarters and nailed boards over the doors? Now I am digging 6 graves here in the shadow of the church. 6 little graves forever looking to St. William. Some of the boxes are empty. The scattered remains we found couldn't fill them all. But I know they're all gone. I know their souls were taken by that thing in the field. I will finish my gruesome work and then renounce the ministry. I don't want to see anyone from the sanctuary ever again, not even that girl who stayed inside the house last night. I don't believe in the devil anymore. Whatever did this is much, much worse.
This is more backstory on what happened at the church back in the 30s. Something horrible happened to the children here, and this poor guy had the task of burying them. It was enough for him to renounce his faith, and I couldn't blame him. This guy is gonna be haunted forever by this memory. Also note it mentioning a girl staying at the house overnight. This isn't a throwaway line. It will become more pertinent the further we go. The note gotten just inside the church reads,
"We have a new volunteer to look after the children and take care of things around the sanctuary, Sister Bell. She came highly recommended by the main office in Hartford. Bringing her in marks the completion of staffing the church after all these years. The church has been very careful about letting out what happened to those children. As far as I can tell, I'm the only one left who knows about it. Soon I'll be gone and the sanctuary will be able to go back into service, having finally left those dark times behind. We've received clearance to move in a new group of children, 3 next week and another 3 sometime next month."
We've read one of Father Clark's notes in the previous chapter. This one is decidedly more hopeful. It seems that after the horrible events in the 30s, most of the staff from then are gone, and Father Clark wants a fresh start with the church by reopening its orphanage. It's also the first time we see the name Sister Bell. That name will be very important very soon. After exercising the chalice, we get the strange behavior note.
Sister Bell seems like a naturally cheery person, but when the new children arrived, she became positively elated. She doles over them constantly, takes them on walks, and tells them stories long into the night. I have seen her engaging in strange behavior. We don't teach the children much dancing or singing besides what is found in the hymns, but I've seen the children dancing around Sister Bell in a circle from time to time. While they dance, she stands still and looks up at the sky as if listening to something. On another occasion, I found all 6 children standing in a line just outside the cornfield, where Sister Bell was standing and talking to them. These odd games don't bother me too much, since she's so good with the children. Her cleaning is excellent, too. As soon as she arrived, she seemed to just instantly know her way around.
Father Clark seems charmed with Sister Bell, with the note starting out like a glowing review. However, he does mention some odd tendencies of hers, and he doesn't think too much on it. Maybe he wants to forget the events of the past so badly he's willing to think nothing more of her and the children's odd activities. Father Clark, you of all people should know that's some demonic shit right there. In the very least, her knowing her way around the church for having just been a new arrival should at least have you a bit more suspicious. The "A missing case" note can be found at the entrance of the basement right off the bat.
They couldn't have given me a worse last case before retirement. Old Catholic church out in the middle of nowhere, 1 missing woman, 4 missing kids, and 1 deceased old nun. The brothers and sisters, or whatever the hell the people that work here call themselves, are all terrified. And worse, superstitious. All except Father Clark, who runs the place. Him and I drive along the farm roads at night, looking for signs of the missing people, and he makes for pretty good company. There are 2 kids left. Say they were asleep the night the 4 went missing. They also claim that the woman, Miriam Bell, isn't actually gone. When I ask where she is, they look at each other, then back at me, and tell me to ask her myself.
It seems something horrible has yet again happened to the children at this church. However, this time, 2 of the children have seemingly been spared. The other 4 have disappeared, along with a woman, Miriam Bell. The children seem to be clued in a little more than the detective, claiming that she isn't gone. As for the deceased old nun, this could have been the spindly lady that appears in Chapter 2, as one of the paranormal investigation notes mentions, the spirit of a woman who used to take care of the orphans back in the 50s, which is the time these current notes are from. However, this is just a theory, I don't know for sure. After repelling the red-painted men, another note appears in the same location.
This morning we found these very odd objects around the church. The best way I can describe them would be large, life-size dolls made of sticks and dead tree branches. Someone must have placed them there while we were sleeping. Hoodlums, maybe, or a group of weirdos. The twins seem fixated on these doll things. They stare out the window at them all the day. I even heard them shout that they saw Miriam standing around them, but when I looked, there was nobody there. Maybe it's the strange behavior of the twins or the hours of driving these farm roads at night, but this place is getting to me. I keep having the same nightmare where I'm standing outside the church looking out into the fields. I can see people looking back at me through the rows of corn. Their bodies are painted red.
He's seeing the stick men we've already encountered in the game. The two children left seem to be able to see Sister Belle standing around these figures, however, the detective cannot. Though he is having strange dreams about red men in the cornfield, likely the thralls of the cult. The basement note is the last one we'll get in this location.
I should have known this place was no good. The signs were all around me. The disappearances, the creepy twins, the life-size stick dolls. 4 of them. Around 2 in the morning, we woke up to the sound of an old woman's cackle coming from the hallway outside the twins' room. I know this sounds crazy, but when we got to the hallway, the laughing was coming from a painting of the Virgin Mary. We thought we had lost our minds. Just then, we heard a loud noise coming from the chapel. We got there just in time to see Miriam drag the twins down the stairs leading to the basement. I drew my service weapon, but was stopped by Father Clark. He said something about God's work and headed down the stairs, sealing the opening to the stairs behind him. The stairs don't seem to open from this side. All I could do is wait. I can't describe the noises I heard down there, but one thing is certain. The devil is real. To anyone reading this, please, for the love of God, don't go down into that basement.
So now we know there were 4 stickmen, 4 for the number of children taken. We also find out the 2 children left are twins. Miriam Bell has taken the children down to the basement, and Father Clark, seemingly knowing that Sister Belle was no mere woman, but a demon in disguise, went down after them himself, knowing a gun wouldn't be able to do the job, and he sealed the entrance behind him, leaving the detective to only imagine what's going on from the horrible sounds he hears. We don't know exactly what happened to the children, if they made it out alive or not just yet. We also don't have definitive proof of what happened to Father Clark. But from his note in chapter 2, I think we're led to believe he probably didn't make it back out of that basement. So what we've learned from this prologue is that the nun demon from chapter 2 is Miriam Bell, and she's been causing chaos for a very long time, starting at the church all the way back when the ill fate befell the 6 children. She was that woman who stayed overnight at the unfortunate gravedigger's home. She was the one to steal away the 4 children this time and pull the remaining 2 down into the basement. She's the one in the Candy Tunnel sewers. She's a prominent figure and thusly one of the head honchos of this second death cult. Hell, she probably started the whole thing considering how long she's been around. This chapter starts off with a memory/dream. A familiar date of September 21st, 1986. John and Father Allred ride together on their way to the Martin household. This is John's first exorcism. Talk about throwing him into the deep end. We see firsthand how that fateful day began, arriving at the house, meeting the Martins, and then descending into the basement to see Amy. After a disturbing image, John wakes up once more. There are 3 days until something called the Profane Sabbath. John discovers a note left by Father Garcia telling him that he can't find Nate or Jason in the foster care roster, and requests John go to the clinic Amy worked at in order to find out where the cult intends to summon the demon Amalphus, while he attempts to locate the twins. John, seeing this as a way to help redeem himself, makes it his new mission to suss out this cult and help save the boys. He arrives in front of the clinic and notices a police officer standing guard in front of it. He tells him that the preacher shouldn't be here and won't let him pass. Still, John needs to get into that clinic and goes around the side to gain access. As he explores the area, John will come across faxes and notes between the staff and some disturbing sonograms. Finding a crowbar, John can now pry the boards off the doorway to gain further access. However, before he can even attempt it, he's ambushed by a monstrous red form that drags him into the doorway, kicking and screaming. He's placed on a gurney and quickly wheeled into a hospital room where the rest of the gurneys hold bloody sheet-covered bodies. John finds he can wiggle his body to scoot the gurney along and attempts to make it out of the room. However, the creature returns before he can. Luckily, John can hide himself behind a curtain before the creature sees him and makes a quick escape while its back is turned. The hallway is filled with even more of these bodies, but they provide the perfect hiding place for John to disguise himself amongst them when the creature inevitably returns to look for him. Once the creature leaves, John scoots himself to the stairwell, and that's when the officer from before appears and releases John from his restraints. He escorts John upstairs, however, before they can make it outside, the creature appears. The cop is shocked to see it, but fires at it a few times. However, a gun won't kill the creature, but John's cross will. After prying the boards off the doors, the two make it outside, only to see the red people, whom we know as the Colt's Thralls, have lit the patrol car on fire. The officer doesn't understand just who these people are and chases after them. And when John follows suit, he finds the officer dead in an alleyway. R.I.P., unnamed officer. John could go home now, leave this damnable place behind, but the clinic requires some further investigation. John returns to the clinic, and in an insane move, gets back on the gurney and wiggles himself over to the door we haven't been able to get through yet. This time, it opens for us, and John proceeds inside, only to see one of those cadavers sit up and reveal itself as faceless. After some sort of interpretive dance, it rushes at John, and he finds himself being pushed down the stairs. After one of the most hilarious cutscenes in this game, the crash frees John from the gurney, and he's now able to proceed on his own 2 feet. Unfortunately for him, he encounters a creepy woman and her creepy babies and will have to defeat them to escape. Once he does, though, he's free to leave the clinic unhindered. Since Chapter 3 is so beefy, I will be adding a notes section after each area instead of just one big lump at the end. One more note from Garcia gives us a little more information.
John, I can't find Nate or Jason Martin in the state foster care system. It's possible that after what happened last year, they went to live with relatives. I will try to find out what I can. Meanwhile, go investigate the clinic where Amy worked. We must find the place where they intend to summon Malfas and disrupt their plans. Vaya con Dios, Father Garcia.
Garcia is fired up and ready to stop this cult and provides John a little more guidance on where to get started. Just inside the clinic, we can find a fax from Gary.
Hi, Rhonda. Just a couple of reminders after last week's visit. Please keep your desk tidy. Our patients need to feel at ease with their healthcare experience. Remember our sales points. Clean, quick, courteous. Do not return any calls from the Department of Health before notifying me first or leaving a message with Tiffany. We cannot afford another surprise inspection. Please do call me on my direct personal line if you happen to hear back from Miss Martin. One more thing. Keep Jeffrey out of sight. Remember, Gary loves you.
Gary not only works here, he's the boss. And he likes to run a tight ship, making the place look as normal and professional as possible to not only hide the real nefarious goings-on in the clinic, but to be more inviting to potential patients, which he can use in his evil schemes. He's also eager to hear from Amy. He definitely wants her for something, obviously demon possession, but it's more than that. He's more focused on her than anyone else we've seen so far. Another note can be found from exercising an IV stand.
Note to self. Pills do not dissolve in IV drip well too weak. Patients waking up before process is complete. Sooner or later, they will realize they are having the same hallucinations. Suggest concentrated injectable version.
Okay, so they're drugging the patients and performing procedures on them. Probably the whole face hole thing if the bloodstains and that one encounter before John's pushed down the stairs means anything. The last letter in the clinic is gotten from defeating the Mother optional boss.
Smooth moves, priest, but the twins are not here. Carry out the works of your God while it is yet day, for the night cometh. Remember, Gary loves you.
This is merely a taunt. Demons will always try to sow doubt, especially if you're doing something they don't want you to do. At least, that's what I assume a demon would do. John's memory dream starts where it last left off. Being that this is John's very first exorcism, he's a little taken aback by seeing a demon possession in the flesh. After some prompting, he grabs the Bible and begins reciting the prayer of exorcism. However, the girl's parents descend into the basement out of concern, interrupting the exorcism. John has to escort them back upstairs and implore them to stay put before quickly returning to continue helping Father Allred. Once John returns to the basement, he finds Father Allred laying on the floor with writing that says, "Take it, save her," meaning take the cross and save Amy from the demon. As John grabs the cross, he states his intent to save her, then wakes up. It's now 2 days until the profane Sabbath. John has a lot of letters to guide him this time. 2 from Lisa, someone we're just now hearing about, which are asking for his aid as she seems to be in danger. And another note from Garcia also mentioning the same apartment building Lisa is located. With that, John has a destination. Heading into the apartment building, John will see that there are 10 floors in total. Wanting to be thorough, he walks the stairs floor by floor, coming across some open doors which house a few odd things. Also noticing that all the mirrors have been broken. Once reaching Lisa's apartment, John finds a cross laying on the floor. That's a little ominous. Heading inside, we find that the place is a mess and there's some kind of seal painted over a door. Exorcising it provides him a clue to something. Whatever it is, it has to do with the sword we saw in the previous room and some kind of mask. After leaving the apartment and heading back towards the elevator, he'll find a note talking about the elevator game. On the 6th floor, he'll find a drawing of the elevator friend. Going a little further, he finds a dead end with writing on the wall that says, "There is no 7th floor." Unsure whether to trust this note or not, he takes the elevator and skips to the 8th floor for now. At the end of this hallway, it says there is a 7th floor, contradicting the writing on the 6th floor. He decides to test this theory and attempts to head to the 7th floor. He tries over and over until a vision of the elevator friend appears and leaves the elevator. Now, John's being hunted throughout the halls by the elevator demon. John will have to deal with this nuisance sneak attacking him in every hallway he goes down, until he banishes it. Now that he's no longer being pursued, he can focus on banishing that seal in Lisa's apartment. The clue showed a sword and a mask. He knows where the sword is and heads there to purify it. Heading to the 10th floor, he finds the manager's office, and on the wall beside it is written, "Sacrifice what you cling to." After finding a note detailing just how to operate the dumbwaiter, John places his cross inside and sends it down to the basement. John will now have to continue on unarmed. Going back to the 4th floor, John will find a camera. As he does, all the lights turn off and he'll have to use the flash to navigate the darkness. There are also blockages of stickmen in the way now, which makes navigating that much more difficult. Still, John manages to find his way through some back rooms and comes upon an apartment totally destroyed with a giant hole in the floor. They are not getting their deposit back. Continuing on, John will be chased by the peekaboo demon he saw in Chapter 2. He will have to navigate a maze-like area with just the flash of his camera, but once he's out of the apartment, the demon stops chasing him. Now, he can head to the basement and reclaim his cross. In the next room, he'll find writing on the wall that says, "Not 7" and 70 times 7. And he'll also find the mask here. The peekaboo demon isn't done with John just yet. When returning to the previous room, it will make itself known, and John will have to deal with it once more. Once it's defeated, he can now return to Lisa's apartment and now is able to get through the sealed door. Inside, Lisa will be standing there, surrounded by stickmen, and when John prompts her to leave with him, she reveals herself to be possessed. During this ordeal, John will have to exorcise Lisa, and in the attempt, he may become possessed himself. However, if he's strong and quick enough, he can banish this demon and save both Lisa and himself. Once Lisa's saved, she books it out of the room and John follows suit. He'll find her in the next room smoking a cigarette, likely to try to calm her nerves after dealing with being possessed and all that. Can't blame you, girl. Can't blame you. After chatting with Lisa, who informs him that Gary is the landlord of this building and is trying to summon a demon, John heads out and decides to play the elevator game. By following the rules and not speaking to anyone who shows up during this little sequence, he leaves the elevator and finds himself somewhere new. This is how he finds and confronts Tiffany. The woman is severely unhinged, but I gotta give her props for her sheer dedication. But be sure, she is a vile creature. In any case, after dealing with her, John is free to leave this place. However, there is now a hole in the elevator which he can jump down several times, and can now access the 7th floor. Here he'll find an effigy surrounded by viscera, in the shape of a young boy. By exercising this totem, the figure disappears, hopefully meaning he was able to put the boy's soul to rest. In this chapter, we learn more about the cult's rituals, that Gary's a bit of an entrepreneur, and Tiffany will do anything to get what she wants. Starting off with the notes we find at John's place, Lisa's first letter says,
John, for now this is the only way I can contact you. I think they're watching me. I need you to come over as soon as you can. The situation has gotten much worse. My address is 665 Orange Saint Apartment 5A, New Haven, CT 06511. Thank you, Lisa P.S. If for some reason I don't answer the door, get the spare key from my friend Tiffany.
And her second?
John, I don't know if you're getting my letters or not, but I hope you'll be here soon. I really need your help. They're in the apartment. I see them all the time now. I can hear them in the darkness. I haven't slept in days. When you get here, just come straight to my place. Tiffany can't be trusted. Don't talk to my neighbors either. They won't let me leave. Lisa.
We don't know exactly who Lisa is, but she and John seem to know each other well enough for her to ask him for his aid while she's in danger. The notes mention something sketchy going on at the apartment building and that Tiffany can't be trusted. We also get another note from Father Garcia.
John, there's an apartment building in New Haven where they may be attempting to summon Malphas. I'm not able to go there myself. It's up to you to stop their rituals. Vaya con Dios, Father Garcia.
He's speaking of the very same apartment building Lisa's at, so now we know just how much danger John's friend was in. The first letter we find when entering the apartment complex is Lisa's third letter.
Hello, Mr. Ward. I am sorry to have worried you. I am perfectly fine. I have not been feeling like myself lately. However, I am much better now. Please do not trouble yourself with coming to visit. I have decided to take an extended vacation in the country, so you will not find me at home. Sincerely, Lisa Pearson.
Which we can see is definitely not Lisa writing this. Someone else penned this letter in order to throw John off the trail. On the 8th floor, we find Tiffany's betrayal note.
Our sister Tiffany has gone against the will of the unspeakable. I thought I could trust her, but I was wrong. Proceed with the original plan. The woman in 5A will be our vessel. Let her pious friend come to rescue her. The unspeakable shall crush them both.
This note mentions Tiffany going against the unspeakable, and that their plan is to use the woman in 5A, who we know is Lisa, to be their vessel. And of course, John is the pious friend mentioned in the note. Tiffany's first note can be found on the 2nd floor.
Every initiated follower knows that in order to bring about the second death, one must sacrifice 7 by passing them through the carved out of the impure vessel's face. Then shall the unspeakable reward the with the second death. Such was the fate of that Amy. My beloved Gary has set his sights far too low. I will surpass her.
This note gives us a little more insight on the second death ritual. Now we know that the removal of the faces is part of this ritual, and 7 of something must be passed through it in order to achieve the second death, which is what happened to Amy. We also learn that Tiffany is an envious and jealous woman. We should also remember the writing on the wall, not 7, 70 times 7. Whatever it is that must be used 7 times to achieve second death was used 490 times by Tiffany, which could explain why instead of just her face missing, it was her entire head. This woman has gone completely overboard. Calm down, Tiffany. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Well, actually, that's too late. Tiffany's second note is found in the basement.
My beloved Gary, alas, the mask is already stained with blood. My blood. The ritual is complete. You will not find me on this mortal plane, for I am beyond. Look for me in the unseen world if you dare. Tiffany.
This note to Gary seems to indicate that Tiffany has achieved second death on her own, which, yeah, we saw that firsthand. Though she went a little overboard, even by the cult standards, and that is saying something. After exercising an altar between 3A and 3B in the hidden passage, we'll get this note.
Brothers and sisters, praise the unspeakable. We have been graced with the presence of another great demon. Elu is here. I do not understand his motive, but he has put his seal over the vessel's door. This may be Tiffany's doing, but it may also be a test of our faith. Do not cease to pray. Swallow your pills. You may have twice as many as normal. Seal yourselves in with bricks and mortar. And if that so-called priest shows up, take him and eviscerate him over the altar, preferably while still alive. Remember, Gary loves you.
Now, we know the name of this new demon, Elu, the one Tiffany has summoned in order to seal Lisa off from Gary. Not out of any altruism mind, she just really wants to be Gary's one and only. After exercising the eye graffiti, we get the note, a special visitor.
Brothers and sisters, this month we will be hosts to a very special visitor. It is here to help prepare the way for the coming of the unspeakable. Of course, due to its special nature, it has full access to the entire building, including your apartments, bedrooms, etc. If you are lucky enough to see it, you would do well not to approach or speak to it. Find a dark or dimly lit area and try to stay out of its way. One of you will be blessed to find it has made its home in your dwelling. Do not go down into the hole it will make, no matter whose voice you hear down there. If you believe one of your fellow brothers or sisters is inside, please notify me, and I will retrieve their remains in a timely manner. Also, just a reminder that rent and utilities are due by Friday. Love, Gary.
These cultists sure have to put up with a lot of intrusion. And the special visitor this note is speaking about is probably Malphus. Again, we're back where we left off with this memory. As John navigates the basement, a figure can be seen hiding in various areas and will disappear when John approaches. Once upstairs, Mr. and Mrs. Martin are nowhere to be seen, and the area is stiflingly quiet. Looking around for them reveals Mr. Martin's glasses to be found in the bedroom, and the family photo is changed into something grotesque. Ascending to the second floor shows much of the same, which is nothing. The Martins aren't here, and all is quiet, so there's only one place left to go: the attic. Amy is here, and as John tries to usher her back to the basement to continue the rite, she mentions a name, Meredith. A name we can infer from a previous note to be the name of his mother, and taunts John with it. John calls out for help, but as Amy says, no one's coming to his aid. And as John raises the cross, he wakes up. It's now one day until the profane Sabbath. There's only one letter from Father Garcia today, directing John to the daycare center where he believes summoning of Malphus will be held. Upon arriving at the daycare, it's surrounded by the police. It makes sense that they would be here if the cult's here. It's not like the cult's being very subtle anymore. Not with all the dead piling up. I mean, that's bound to get some attention. But John needs to get in there. So, like with the clinic, he makes his way around the back of the building to find another entrance. In here, he'll find a bloody ritual site and many disturbing children's drawings. He'll need to use these drawings to figure out just how to go further. Once he does, a door opens up in the center of the markings and he descends down. In the area, John can find a painting, and the longer he stares at it, the more it deforms, until a pair of hands pull it through a circular portal on the wall. Pursuing it leads John deeper into the cultist den. Here, he'll have to deal with the hooded figures while trying to navigate and solve puzzles in order to proceed. At one point, a cultist will ambush John and inject him with something that makes him hallucinate a number of different visions. At the end, he'll be sent back into a memory of the night of the Martin household. This time, he'll find the bodies of the Martins gruesomely slain with their own entrails. And in the basement, a disturbing scene with Amy and Father Allred's body. Once that trippy delusion is cleared, John will be back in the present, ready to continue. Bodies of the dead and dying cultists litter the ground in the next room, though John doesn't linger long. He has a task to do. In this new area, he has a puzzle to solve, and even more demons to contend with. Banishing the giant floating head demon will break the final seal though, which means he is making progress in the right direction. The nightmare will soon be over, but not before dealing with more of the cult's sick games. At some point, John will have to use a lantern to go further. And he will have to navigate a dark wooded area as best he can while demons pursue him. Persevering with exorcising those locked up in cages opens a new area where we'll finally hear Gary speak for the first time. We're back in that moment at the Martins' household in 1986, right where we left off before. In this memory, John is so afraid he prays for help. An luminous figure appears. But don't be fooled, this isn't the Lord John seeks guidance from. With this deal with the devil made, John is allowed to leave the house. Back to the present, we can now see that the night has passed and it is now October 31st, the day of the profane Sabbath. John will find himself in front of Gary in the flesh.
Gary Miller, you'll get 3 questions.
Gary offers to answer 3 questions, and with each question asked, his face grows more and more distorted. However, we can find out some pertinent answers from him, such as the Martin twins not being real, finding out just how and why the ritual of the second death is performed, and just what Gary's trying to accomplish here.
A simple procedure once the vessel is prepared. First, we carve out their face with the ritual knife. Then we pass a living newborn through the opening and wait for a response. And that, John, is how you make a portal to hell.
After chatting with Gary, it's now time to finally put him down. It's never as simple as that though, is it? Luckily for John, Father Garcia shows up and blasts Gary right in the face with his trusty shotgun. In the next part, John will have to do alone, with Father Garcia hanging back to keep the place secure from the rest of the cult. After jumping down into the hole, John finds himself somewhere familiar. It's dark and distorted, but we can see that this is a recreation of the Martin household. There are notes scattered all over which all say the same thing. And John's destination, as always, lies in the attic. And once he makes it there, we'll have to fight Gary one more time. This time in a different form with the help of his buddy Malthus. But even when we're sure we've defeated both of them, they instead merge into Gary's mother, Miriam Bell, and create a grotesque amalgamation of the 3. This is the last battle John must face, and it is a doozy. However, John isn't as fragile as he once was. He can take quite a few hits before going down during this battle, which we can be thankful for as, unlike any of the other battles, this one is more akin to a bullet hell scenario. Also, the coolest song plays during this battle. I love it. After weakening the demon enough to separate the three, John lights himself on fire, runs at Miriam, and she erupts into flames and soon bursts into a shower of blood. Gary recites something to Amy. Only to have a hand reach out from her face hole, call him a failure, and pull him back into the depths he came from. At the end, John apologizes to Amy for not being able to save her.
I couldn't save you.
And with that, John holds up his cross and finally finishes the exorcism, putting Amy's soul to rest. And I have to say, that is one of the best, most satisfying endings ever.
Amen.
The bad guy got his comeuppance, we got our forgiveness, the girl is maybe not saved, but at least resting, no longer being hurt. I'm moved. Good ending, Erdorf. Good ending. John and Father Garcia leave the daycare and this scene plays.
So easy, son. Yes. What I encountered out there was truly unspeakable, but I destroyed it with the help of the Lord. Good evil. You destroyed a mighty people and disrupted the prophets of God. But the unspeakable is still out there. It must be hunted down and destroyed. You've grown stronger, John. I can see it. I need spiritual warriors like you. John! Lisa, what are you doing here? John, please don't go. You don't have to keep fighting. We can leave this place together. Live the rest of our lives in peace. Lisa, I still have so many questions. I need to figure out this out or I'll never be able to rest. Then let's figure it out together.
You now have the choice between Lisa or Father Garcia. I chose Father Garcia this time as the road so far has been about John overcoming his weaknesses and doubts and growing strong enough to take on this cult and the evils it unleashes. However, if and when Chapter 4 is released, that may change. And that concludes Faith the Unholy Trinity, for now. These notes will wrap up some of the lingering questions we have and make a few new revelations. Father Garcia's fourth note will be found in John's house in the usual spot next to the door.
John, I'm getting reports of children exhibit strange behavior at the daycare center on 4th Street. If Nate and Jason are there, then you can bet that is the place they will try to summon Malphas. There's no time left. Go to the daycare and find out what's really going on. Fear not. Vaya con Dios, Father Garcia.
It seems Garcia has yet to be informed that Malphas has already been summoned, but he still has a point that the daycare should be visited. A riddle is an ominous note that can be found on the playground before entering the daycare.
A riddle, priest? How do you make a portal to hell? Come see me, and I'll show you.
We may not want to know, but unfortunately we're gonna find out. Throughout the area under the daycare, we'll find the notices for Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 acolytes.
If you are reading this, then congratulations. You are on your way to experiencing the wonders of our unspeakable future under the guidance of Gary. Gary, our brother. Gary, our friend. Gary, a normal human being just like you and me. As a Tier I acolyte, you are just beginning your unspeakable journey to eventually see what Gary sees and prove yourself worthy to be a vessel fit to experience the second death, reserved for only the most worthy. To find out if you are a vessel, remember to attend meeting of the Eternal Order of the Second Death twice a week. Follow Gary's instructions exactly. Be honest with him in all that you do. Do not ever ask what is behind the door in the basement of the clinic. You are now a Tier 4 acolyte. You have descended beyond anything that could possibly save you. Your words are not your own. Your actions are not your own. You belong, body and spirit, to Gary. Your face itches for the warm embrace of the ritual mask. You long for the blinding pain of the knife. You truly are Gary's chosen vessel. Fear not. Only a little longer, and you will experience the second death. Adios, alma perduta. Gary loves you.
These notes inform us on how the cult proceeds with inducting its members and preparing them for the whole thing, aka second death. The poem from Miriam can be found at the bottom of the stairs in Garyland.
She consumed 6 little twigs. Only 2 were left to walk as husks. Go ahead, priest. Stare into the eyes of my mother.
By now, you may have realized what the first portion of this means, but if you haven't, I'll explain that further in just a little bit. The timeline of Miriam note can be found right after entering the Crucible.
March 18th, 1934. Miriam is ready. We will perform the ritual according to her instructions tonight. March 19th, 1934. We successfully gave the second death to Miriam. We have been passing living newborns through the newly made portal as quickly as we can get them. So far, there has been no response from the other side. March 23rd, 1934. After several days of sacrifices, we finally got a response. A tiny hand reached out from the portal. We took the hand and pulled out a baby boy. It appears to be a normal human baby just like you and me. We named it Gary.
And now we know exactly how Gary came to be. It was Miriam who started all of this. She's the beginning of this madness, was started all the way back in the 30s when the 6 orphans were slain. If you read the note 6 Little Grays back in Chapter 2 Prologue, not only does it mention what happened to the children, but it also says, I don't want to see anyone from the sanctuary ever again, not even that girl who stayed inside the house last night. That girl being Miriam Bell, and here she still is, being used to birth demons into the world through her face hole. We can also see where the saying, Gary is a normal human being, just like you and me, comes from. Now, with this next letter, you only get it if you get the A New Vessel ending. I haven't added many different ending notes as they don't really add to anything to how the story of Faith is meant to be told. However, this one is very interesting and does tie into something Gary mentions.
Bob, I wouldn't be breaking client confidentiality like this if we didn't go way back. The situation is really starting to worry me. Cindy's delusions are much worse than she initially let on. I was careful to gradually introduce the reality of the situation to her. You were very patient with how she still spoke about them, the fake birthday parties, etc. I thought we were making progress when I got her to accept that she miscarried and that the twins are gone. But she now seems convinced they are trying to make contact with her and that she can find replacements for their spirits to inhabit. Does that sound familiar? Remember the house we found in that village in Nicaragua? Did you tell her about it? I don't know why you would, but I can't think of any other reason for why she would be talking about things like that. Come by my office as soon as you can. We need to talk about what to do next. Morris.
The twins, as John perceived them, never existed. Cindy, aka Mrs. Martin, Amy's mother, miscarried the twins. However, her mind couldn't handle that and became delusional. We have a bit of proof that, considering we never actually saw the twins outside of John's prophetic dreams. And note that the family portrait in the Martin household only showed Bob, Cindy, and Amy. You wouldn't have a single family portrait with just one of your children if you had more of them, right? So why did John latch onto this idea that the twins needed to be saved? Well, there's an answer for that too. Looking into the Snake Meadow Hill Church, Miriam Bell, and parts of the vision John sees when the cultist injects him with something will give us the answer. In the vision, we see the church with Miriam Bell standing out front, and in the windows we can see 6 children, 4 depicted in black, 1 in yellow, 1 in blue. The only 2 figures with those color schemes are John and Lisa. To further add to that, we also see a more clear picture of a young John and Lisa holding hands as well. In the poem from Miriam, it said, "She consumed 6 little twigs, only 2 were left to walk as husks." During the Chapter 2 prologue, we learned Snake Meadow Hill Church was still operational in the 50s, and took in orphans who were under the care of Sister Miriam Bell. 4 of those children went missing, leaving 2 behind, John and Lisa. That's why John and Lisa are so close. They are the twins mentioned in the note from the detective in the prologue. There are even 2 times Miriam Bell calls John her little one, because he was. Which means John has been a part, or maybe not a part, but has been linked to this cult, to Miriam Bell, all the way back since he was just a little boy. He and Lisa were the 2 children that Miriam Bell drug into the basement and did God knows what to them. We can assume that perhaps this cult was going to groom him and Lisa to be obviously vessels for these demons, and well, they didn't succeed on that, and John came out victorious in the end. So that's that, at least until Chapter 4 releases. If you stuck around and listened till the end, I thank you greatly. Like I said, this video is by no means an exhaustive look into the game that is Faith the Unholy Trinity. Other YouTubers have gone into great detail about it and have done it a much better job than I could on it long before I even started working on this video. My goal here was to give just a quick summary of the story and provide a little backstory so you can see what this game is about. And honestly, I just really wanted to make a video about it because this is an awesome game. So, with that said, thank you for watching The Midnight Goat.
Gary!